Our next guest is known for his in the gym, behind the scenes style of journalism and firsthand accounting of the boxing world. You know him from E! News reporting. Welcome to Title Unboxed, Elie Seckbach.
Welcome to Title Unboxed. With more than 40 years of experience in the fight game, our host, Doug Ward, will be covering every corner of the ring as we get comfortable between the ropes. We'll talk with both the lesser knowns and the legends, discuss boxing's rich history and current state of the game. We'll also look at today's latest innovations, equipment breakdowns, and insights you won't uncover anywhere else. Join us now as we take a look inside Title Unboxed.
Elie, thanks for joining us on today's program.
No, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, it's great. I've thought about you from the very beginning of this. A lot of our viewers and listeners probably only know you from the boxing world, but I want you to talk a little bit about your start, because you didn't start in boxing. You were kind of just in sports in general and all in the California area, right?
It's a funny story. So I actually started covering the Lakers when Kobe joined the Lakers, and it was a weird timing. I played college basketball. My teammates tried out for the NBA. I went with them for the tryouts. I didn't try out. I was just sitting on the bench. And in basketball, it's much more of a culture of trash talk. I tried that with boxers. It doesn't work. They don't have the same intent. Like, they're more intense than basketball players.
Yeah.
So the NBA players were asking my friends, who's this guy in the sideline talking trash to us? And they said, oh, just Elie, ignore it. So I wrote a little article about the interaction with the Lakers stars, and it got picked up by a small newspaper. And before I knew it, I'm covering Kobe for about 14 years. So I started out covering basketball, covering the NBA, and covering Shaq and Kobe was an amazing experience.
Yeah, I bet you're devastated by his death.
Oh, terrible. Yeah, I think about him all the time because he was such a nice person. He was very nice to me personally, but in general, when someone does something for charity and it's not for the cameras, you know they're a good person. So Kobe every morning will go help out the homeless. And he didn't take a selfie of himself giving them blankets, and he didn't have a camera crew wait for him alone. He did it away from the limelight. So that's the type of person. I mean, it's okay to show people that you're doing charity, but I think it's a higher level when you do it and nobody knows.
Exactly, for sure. So was there an aha moment or experience that made you kind of segue exclusively into boxing?
Manny Pacquiao. So
Really?
I'm doing very good covering the NBA. I'm winning awards. I'm getting accolades. I'm working for NBC TV. Like, everything's like the dream job. And it's everything I ever thought it would be and bigger than that. And it's amazing. A friend of mine is one of the biggest importers of pearls from the Philippines to the US. Mm-hmm. And he tells me about the number one boxer in the world that I have to interview. And I said, what, Mike Tyson? He goes, no, Manny Pacquiao. And I'm like, I'm sorry. This is before the De La Hoya fight, before he was mainstream. Yeah. So I told my friend, listen, I'll interview him. And he's telling me, listen, I'm on a plane. And when they announce that he wins, the entire plane jumps up and down and doing the wave. You can't imagine how big this guy is. When he fights, the streets are empty. And it was new and fresh. We've heard these stories a million times, but back then I heard it first time. So I go to interview Manny. And it was such a great experience, such a nice person. And you had 500 people outside waiting for autographs, and he doesn't leave till he signs each one. Wow. So I came back the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And it went from being 100% covered in the NBA to 90-10. Just Pacquiao, not boxing. 80-20, 74, until it was the other way and it was 100% boxing. But my first year pretty much was Manny. Yeah. But that was my introduction. And a few months after I met him, he beat Oscar and he became this rock star. But I'm in already.
Right.
And from your experience, Doug, once you get bitten by the boxing bug, you're hooked.
Yeah, that's true.
You're inside
100%.
And you can't compare it to any other sport or any other experience.
Why is that, in your opinion? What is it about boxing that separates it and makes it different like that?
There's a lot of things, but I'll give you one example. From my perspective, I'm good with NBA players. I covered them since they were in college or even high school, like Jordan Farmer, Nick Young. I met them when they were in high school, and then they make it to the NBA.
Yeah.
But the first year, everybody wants to be interviewed. The second year, they say, you know what? Let's not do an interview. Just come to the house and hang out. Mm-hmm. By the third year, it's like, we love you, you're our guy, but we don't do interviews. Where in boxing, the fighters like the attention, and you could walk in a boxing gym and leave with 80 interviews. Yeah. You can interview fans, and the passion, I think the passion is there where, on the one hand, people love the Lakers whether they win or lose. A fighter, they love him when he wins. When he loses, they don't love it. But the passion and the knowledge that the average boxing fan has is much more than the average basketball fan.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't think it's too big of a thing to say that you are really a pioneer in this sport, because when you started, independent journalists didn't really exist on the level that you're at. You didn't have a big network behind you. You weren't with Fight News or Max Boxing or
okay. It's funny. It's funny you say that, because I could not get a credential to save my life.
Yeah.
I was new. I was different. Everybody was ridiculing me for holding a little camera and not being a writer. Because when I started covering boxing, every newspaper in America had designated boxing writers. Yeah. Today, there's not one. There's not one designated boxing writer in any newspaper. Think about that. Everything shifted to video. So everybody was making fun of me for holding a little camera and interviewing. Because the way boxing was covered before I started, I'm not taking credit for it because it's natural growth. Like, we went from print to radio to video to CD, DVD, VHS and all that.
A natural progression, but you certainly pushed that and made that more commonplace.
Okay, so Doug, this is what I did. I took the same way that I covered the Lakers to boxing, which no one did before. Before, you had the big fight, so it was January, a lot of coverage, quiet on the set for 4 months. Big fight, quiet on the set. If the Lakers win by 40, it's a story. If they lose by 40. If Kobe plays, it's a story. If he doesn't play, it's a story. Off season, every day, 365, for 20 hours a day, I'm covering boxing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm in the gym and I will have the scoop 3 weeks before, but because I know and they trust me, I have to hold it inside and I have to wait till someone else says it so I could say, like, I knew Tank and Loma were negotiating before the Frank Martin fight. But I can't say anything because I'm cool with both teams, and you know what? I'm not thirsty. Let them make the fight. Let them announce it, and then we could go from there.
Was there a turning point when you felt it start to, like, really shift, when it's like, okay, this is becoming the norm, this is acceptable, and I'm not being made fun of, I'm not that guy?
When I started, I have on YouTube, it's 100 episodes. It's called the Robert Garcia Boxing Academy. It's a reality show I did about Robert Garcia. And I can't tell you how many NBA legends, how many MMA legends showed up at Robert's gym just because those webisodes. They're very comical, they're very fun. And from a social standpoint, you really didn't have a Mexican American in a positive role model in boxing. They're always like the bad guys. They're always depicted in a certain angle. But here it was like a really cool family with lots of great boxing and lots of characters showing up at the gym. So Nick Diaz shows up at the gym. He wants to train with Robert. Cain Velasquez shows up at the gym. NBA players, when I would meet them, say, oh, we love Robert. So that, I think when people started seeing that you can go interview anybody and anybody has a chance to blow up in boxing, you're not dependent on HBO anymore, which is out of business, or Showtime, which is out of business. Because people would wait for their opportunity, Doug, to be on All Access. Yeah. You don't need that. You have social media, you could do that. So I think when people started seeing some of the fighters and getting into the videos, getting hooked on the videos on a daily basis, you know how many times I go places and wives or girlfriends of fans would tell me, I hate you. All my husband does is watch you all night. I hate your voice. That's the biggest compliment. That means people are watching. So I think that was a big thing. But the key for me is always to just be grounded. Every day I start with 0 views. So every day, it doesn't matter what I did last year. You can't celebrate. It's like a poll before an election. It doesn't mean anything. Yeah. So you have to start every day. I'm grinding.
Well, you do that. That's for sure.
And I'll tell you what's interesting. Like someone like Gervonta Davis, for years and years and years, the media refused to see his greatness. I don't know why. I don't know if because he was maybe they hated Floyd. They took it out on him. Maybe they didn't like him. Who knows what the reason is? But I've been saying that he's on the pound-for-pound list for 8 years. Now everybody's on board, but it took them 8 years to get there. So when you go against the grain and you have your own opinions in boxing, people don't like that. Everybody, they like to be from the same loaf of bread, the same slice. Yeah.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point, which kind of leads me to this next comment or question. You know, I guess one of the things I've always appreciated about you is it always baffled me that commentators, reporters, people within the sport of boxing, all they did was look for opportunities to talk shit on their sport, say bad things about a fighter or a fighting style or a fight, and just find the most negative things, when it's kind of like, you know, that's biting the hand that feeds you. And you don't really do that. You look for the positive in things, and you don't really you take more of a neutral approach, which I think it really lends itself to the real fight fans, they want that. They don't want people just dogging on the fight game all the time.
It's very interesting you say that because I'm going to say Teddy Atlas, when I used to watch him on ESPN, I would get mad because all he would do is trash the whole world and everybody's wrong with everyone. Hold on.
Yeah.
Now he's starting to link up with the Saudis and he's going to 180 degrees opposite. He's praising every fighter he meets. He's praising, yes, he wants the job out there, but that wasn't him all the years. You don't see anybody trashing NBA. You don't see anybody trashing the NFL from the NFL media. They may go after a certain team or coach or a player, which is normal to criticize. We're all human. Yeah. But in boxing, it's the only sport where all the experts, I call them generals with no army. A lot of the media, they're big shots on social media, but they have no one following them. Right. And that's a whole nother episode where I believe a lot of people in boxing are buying followers and buying views because it's very easy today in social media to go buy 100,000, 1 million followers. But I already know the engagement and I know the real thing. So you can't really be so negative about your sport. We all love boxing. You want to see the sport succeed, but you're all complaining about this promoter and that. Why are you worried about pay-per-view numbers? Why are you worried about all these things that doesn't even affect you? So it's just, listen, you don't have to love every fighter, but be honest. Don't criticize them. And this is what all the people who criticize Tank were taking selfies with him this weekend. What about keeping the same energy? You know what I mean? The Beacons never should have trashed him. No problem. But now he's hot stuff. So you want a picture with him and say, hell, I'm with the champ. Yeah. But for 10 years, all you did was say bad stuff. And I just use that as an example, but I'm sure there's a lot of cases like that.
Well, and I've always told everybody, that was part of the UFC's success. Is they came onto the scene. The fighters hadn't had a platform before that. They certainly hadn't had something of that magnitude. So all they did was talk positively about Dana White and about the sport and just the discipline in general. And that's why it took off so fast and so hard, because they had that positive energy behind it.
Not only that, but I've covered some UFC events, and Dana is doing a great job. At 3 p.m, the arena's packed. They will give the 0-0 fighter, a 1-0, a 0-1 fighter, the same amount of publicity that they give their superstar. They bring them out for a press conference where the entire media corps gets 15 minutes with everybody. So you get the shine when you just started. You get the video promo. In boxing, 3 p.m, I was just at the arena this weekend. I was the only one in the venue. It was me and the security guards. Nobody watches the first three. You've been there, Doug. 3 p.m, who's in the building?
I've been there. Yeah, nobody. The fighters and the teams.
For the most part, that's it. And it's wrong. I would love to see the place packed from the opening. And you see that in other countries where they're passionate and they'll be there an hour before and they're singing and dancing. But here we're so focused on the main event. And many times the cards will be weak, but the main event will be amazing. Yeah. Now they're stacking up cards because they realize the fans want more. But UFC always had the best against the best. And there's only one belt, where in boxing there's 4 belts, and then each sanctioning body may have multiple belts. And it gets very complicated, and it's a cobweb of how many belts you have and who has the belt. And it does hurt it, but it's good to see in this day and age that a lot of promoters are working with each other. Yeah. I would like to see in boxing, in gymnastics, you have 11 referees, 14, judges, not referees, sorry. 11 judges. In boxing, 3 judges may not be enough because we have, how many times do we have controversial decisions?
Almost
so
every
maybe
big
have
fight.
5 or 7, but unfortunately, which is not good for the sport because the average person doesn't know the sport. When my focus is to open up boxing, not to the hardcore fans. They already exist. And maybe there's only 80,000 of them or 50,000. I'm not sure an exact number, but it's less than 100,000 of hardcore fans. But there's millions of people who can appreciate the art of boxing and they get so confused when they watch a fight. They think someone won, but then it goes the other way. So that's one thing that boxing, I would love to see fixed at some point. I think adding 1 or 2 judges, at least 2 to 4 judges.
You brought up a funny memory. My family hated to go to the fights with me because I'd want to be there from the very beginning. Well, that's a 6-7 hour day. But, again, that's where you see a lot of the good fights and certainly get your first glimpse of that future superstar.
No, of course. And plus, I like to go and support them because I know nobody's there, and it's important for me to be there that early. Yeah. If I'm already at your event, let me come watch you. I can't interview you for a month before and then not watch you fight. And another thing, even when a fighter doesn't win, I think fans should still support them. Nobody goes undefeated in life. No one. Mayweather's told me that he's had losses in life, but he also lost in amateurs. And the problem is that someone loses or has a draw, and then they get fired or the contract's canceled. The fans turn on them. Oh, Earl Spence has 3 belts in his division. He loses to Crawford, who's a great fighter, and all of a sudden Earl didn't do anything in his whole life. Yeah. It doesn't work like that in real life, right?
Yeah.
So those are the things in boxing I'd like to see like improve just in general with the obsession of the undefeated.
Yeah.
Obsession with like, there's no consistency with the scorecard, no consistency with referees. Like it's rating sometimes where you want to see it. Just at least we'll know what judges look for on a regular basis.
Right. Well, and that's probably robbing us from some really great fights because some fighters are a little bit afraid to take that loss because they know it's going to impact them from a social media standpoint, financially, even from just a fan's perspective.
Yeah, and I try to tell as many fighters as I can, build your own social media. You don't need favors from no one. You don't need me. You have Twitter, you have Instagram, you have YouTube, you have Facebook, you have TikTok. Oh, I'm not into social media, but you're hurting yourself.
Yeah.
Because in the end of the day, Jake Paul wouldn't be making 30 million or 20 million or 15 million if he didn't have a following.
Yep.
That's a big part of it. Ryan Garcia has 12 million followers. He grew 2 million followers after the Tank fight.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. He announced his retirement yesterday, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I want to talk a little bit about that. Before I lose this thought, though, you bring up some big names that you've been associated with and had the chance to interview and talk with. Anybody that was just you were just in awe of, you were maybe a little bit nervous to approach or interview?
After covering Kobe for 14 years, it's hard to say that anyone was, because a lot of people were very intimidated by Kobe. But I could tell by his walk if it's a day to mess with him or not. If he was in a serious mode and he was locked in, leave him alone. So that helps me with boxing. But of course, getting to know Mike Tyson on a personal level I still like, oh my God, it's Mike Tyson. I grew up watching him. So getting to know him personally was a big deal.
Yeah.
Everybody else is just cool. Like, I believe it or not, I'm a big fan of Broner, of Chavez Jr., because I know them as people, as individuals. And they do a lot for charity away from the limelight where people would never know. They look at the boxing aspect. They look at some of the antics. Chavez Jr., whenever I do a story about someone with cancer, he calls me 6 a.m. and he says, hey, my lawyer is going to call you. How much money does the family need? People don't know that. Yeah. I've been with Adrian Broner 2 a.m. He pulls over. He says, turn off your camera. He'll give homeless money, cash. He doesn't want it on camera. That's the first thing he is. So it's not so much that you're in awe because, unfortunately, we live in a world, Doug, when the people with the worst reputation are the greatest people. The people with the best reputation are the ones you don't want to deal with. Like, you're like, I'm sure you've dealt with it too. In your business with title. It's like you think that this guy's such a bad person, but he actually said thank you to you. How many fighters have thanked you for what you've done for them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very few.
Yeah, it's rare.
Okay, but it's always the ones that you wouldn't expect to thank you.
It is. It is.
Okay.
That's absolutely true.
So, and you do a lot. You give back a lot. And you give people opportunities and merchandise and stuff, and you don't always advertise it. You just do it because you're a good dude. But
we do.
I've probably given away 50 pairs of gloves that I bought from your page.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. One of them I gave to Justin Bieber. He was at the gym and he didn't have gloves. And I just bought it. Was the most expensive pair you had on your site. It was like $250. But there was I'll send you the links, but the paparazzi were all happy seeing him leave the gym holding the gloves in his hand.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
But many times it's the kids that don't have gloves and they ask me, hey, can you send me gloves? And, you don't do too much, but if someone asks and you hope they use them.
For sure. Yes. So I want to get into the fighters and some of the controversial fights we've had lately. Let's start with somebody you just brought up, Adrian Broner, lost to Blair the Flair Cobbs. What'd you think of that?
I was there.
Yeah.
And in the second round, Blair hit Broner, and he knocked Broner's tooth out. And from there on, the mouthpiece, it was a veneer, the mouthpiece didn't fit. But when Broner fell, he cracked his elbow and he ripped his shoulder because he fell awkwardly, his entire body and his hand. Yep. He fought the next 8 rounds with one hand, and no one noticed, not even Blair. Because I asked Blair after the fight, did you know Broner had one hand? He goes, no. How much guts and how much willpower do you have to fight with one hand? He could have quit and said, oh, I'm injured, I can't go on. And we would have understood that. So I'd love to see a rematch. I thought it was a good event. But we don't understand. Listen, you get a splinter and you're uncomfortable. Can you imagine having your tooth knocked out, busted elbow, busted shoulder? And having Blair's very active. He throws a lot of punches. And Blair was so determined that night. But Broner still fought back.
Yeah.
So I was happy to see. I wouldn't mind to see a rematch.
Well, again, he just falls under the category of, easy to criticize a fighter when you've not been there and done that.
Or you don't know that. Look at another one. Benavidez just what, 3 days ago, 4 days ago?
Yeah.
It feels like months ago the fight, but it was just 4 days ago, correct?
Yeah.
I went to visit him in camp, Doug, and I've known David since he's 11. Manny Pacquiao used to kick everyone out of the gym, but he let David stay. And David weighed like 250 pounds. He was a little chubby kid.
Yeah.
And just very friendly, very intelligent. And I went to visit him in camp. He was training at a boxer gym in Miami. And he didn't do mitts that day, and he wasn't hitting hard. So right away, that told me there's an injury. But I didn't ask. Obviously, there's something wrong. Turns out both his hands were messed up, torn ligaments. But he still took the fight. And he still did good till 4 rounds, till the hand gave out.
Yeah.
But fans at home, A, they don't care. And B, they don't know. So those are things that when you look at it, like, wow, he did it with an injury. But you may say, oh, it wasn't the same performance we expected, but he wasn't 100%.
Right. So let's get back to who you brought up a little earlier, and Ryan Garcia, and what he's been going through lately. He had a tremendous performance against Devin Haney. I know you're close with the Garcia camp. Had a tremendous performance against Devin Haney. I don't think a lot of people saw that kind of dominated performance, coming. Then he gets tested positive for steroids. Then we hear about Devin Haney's didn't make the rehydration clause in California from, I guess, the beginning of his career, has never achieved that. And then just recently, Garcia announced his retirement. What do you think about, all that big ball of controversy?
Where do you start with this one? I've known Devin since he's 15, and I've known Ryan since he's about 14.
Yeah.
And Ryan always had insane power. Joe Goosen told me pound for pound, he's the biggest puncher he's ever been around. His old coach, Jason, when he was just turning pro, I have a video, and Jason says, he hits like a heavyweight. He's always had speed and power. And people always like to say, oh, but his chin's up. But he's 25-1 with 20 knockouts.
Yeah.
Muhammad Ali wasn't perfect in every way boxing-wise, but he was Muhammad Ali, right? So he went in with Devin. What really surprised me was Devin's lack of ability to adjust. He didn't keep the hand up. He didn't clinch. He didn't move out of the way. So, and Ryan kept hitting him with the same punch. Of course, I was shocked by the result when they came back with the drug test. I didn't expect that because I've known Ryan. He doesn't like to take off-the-counter medication. He never has.
Yeah.
So they proved that it was supplement contamination. But, of course, the supplement company is going to say it's not us because they're scared, because now athletes will be scared to take their product.
Right.
And tomorrow is the commission hearing. So I'm reading a lot that they're going to change it from a win to no contest, which, okay, depends how the commission over there rule. Did they believe Ryan or did they believe Haney? Haney says, and then the amounts were very small in the system. And why would he take, he took 4 tests for that fight, Ryan, and he was clean, but the last 2 were negative. So who would try to take something right before a fight when it takes weeks to affect? I'm not an expert in the field at all. But I just know the kid, and I don't believe he's a cheater when it comes to Ryan. And he did win, and he won in a convincing fashion. It wasn't controversial. It wasn't like he hit him once, he dropped him once. Anybody could get knocked down once, flash knockdown.
Yeah.
He dominated. In fact, the referee, which he was the referee this weekend for Tank, Harvey, what's his name? The ref from the fight with Ryan, Harvey Duck.
Okay.
I thought he was going in favor of Haney when I was watching the fight because there were 2 knockdowns that he called slips.
A lot of people
and
did,
he took a point away from Ryan. Again, it was the same referee from Loma and Haney, and I thought Loma won.
Yeah, me too.
But let's see what happens with the commission. If Ryan gets a 6-month suspension or a year suspension, first-time offense, it doesn't affect him because he only fights once a year.
Right.
But if it's a suspension of 2 years or 5 years, Margarito was suspended for life. But when the Pacquiao came up to fight, the commission in Texas let him fight. They cleared him. So it doesn't mean it's the end of the road, but it must be frustrating for Ryan. He won. He believes he's not a cheater. I don't believe he's a cheater. And now they're going to take boxing away from him. But we don't know until tomorrow at this time what the result is. So if he gets a 6-month suspension, it's been already like 6 months, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It
doesn't affect him. But
no.
Now Haney, on the other hand, he reminds me of Ronda Rousey. And I don't mean this in a funny way. Ronda was told the whole time that she is the greatest fighter of all time. This is her era. She is the face of combat sports. Her total record in MMA and UFC is 6-2. She only had 8 fights. A boxer with 8 fights is not even fighting for an ABA title.
Right.
Haney's been told for so many years that he is the greatest, that this is his era, that he is the cat's meow, that he is the new Mayweather.
Yep.
He is the first Devin Haney. He's not not the second anything. And he has good defense, but he doesn't have a lot of power. And in that fight, even the defense didn't come because Ryan clipped him in the first round and it was over.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how he comes back. And now the purse bid that was just 2 days ago, he always claims that he makes so much. He said he made $37 million for the Ryan fight, which doesn't add up mathematically for me at all. But that's what he said, 37. And now the next fight, he's being offered $1.5 million. I'll give you an example. People criticize Tank's resume, correct? Who he fought. But Barrios moved up in weight, is now a champion. Pitbull Cruz moved up in weight, is a champion. Rolly will not be a champion. Pedraza moved up and be a champion. You could lose and still make money. You just have to win. But Haney coming back, he's thinking now, does he want to vacate the belt or fight Sandro Martin? It's a big risk for a little money for him. Yeah, $1.5 million for me is a lot of money.
Yeah.
but does he take it or no? That's the question. So it all depends on the commission hearing tomorrow, how it goes, what kind of suspension or punishment. If Ryan, they may understand Ryan and say, you know what, first time you did it, you gave us a good reason why you failed the drug test. Right. And they had Barbosa stand by in case Ryan messes up, because Ryan was acting up a little bit during camp, right?
Yeah.
So when Ryan missed weight, Haney could have said, we're fighting Barbosa. Mm-hmm. You can't agree to get it paid, whatever they said, what it was, $500,000 or $700,000, whatever the money was. I forgot what it was already. But I think it was like $200,000 a pound, right? Like $3 million, $1.5 million. Sorry, it was $1.5 million. You can't agree to take that money and then complain you missed weight. You took the money. So we'll see what happens. But Ryan is a rock star regardless. Yeah. And Haney, we don't know. It's a question mark how he comes back, if he comes back.
Yeah. Well, I think he's good for boxing. I hope it plays out the way it should for everybody.
Hopefully. I mean, how many years have you been around boxing?
I've been in boxing since I was 15 years old. So 45, almost 45, 45 years almost.
And how did titles start? Because I'll tell you something, Doug, whenever I'm in a gym and people ask me what glove to buy, I always send them to your site and I'll tell you why. Because if they don't have a lot of money, they could buy a glove that's great, that's affordable. And if they have a lot of money, they could buy a high-end glove.
Yeah.
How'd you start the company, though? There's only 2 or 3 big companies at your level.
Yeah, well, we broke away from another sporting goods company about 25 years ago and started really just kind of getting into, we started with entry-level gloves because we just saw there was really a market there, and started with the cheaper stuff, and then, slowly advanced into some more expensive gloves and higher level and a broader variety, and we just kind of grew from there.
It looks like to me that the glove market is very saturated. Every week there's a new company coming out with gloves. What do you think about that?
It is. There's tons of competition out there, but I think it's healthy because it makes you stay on your game. You don't get lazy. You don't get complacent. You realize that there's always somebody chomping at your heels. So you got to constantly innovate. Provide better, safer, higher quality equipment, and just be available to the masses.
What's the biggest compliment you ever gotten about your gloves?
I think some of our associations, we have a collaboration with the WBC, we have a collaboration with Ray Leonard, we have a collaboration with Roberto Duran, Kronk Gym. It was something we've started about a year ago or so. So I think that's the biggest compliment when people of that level in the sport that are highly respected, actually come into business with us and allow us to represent their brand along with them. So that to me is the biggest compliment.
No, of course. But like I said, I like the gloves myself. I've used them. And they're very comfortable. You're not going to hurt your hands when you work out with them, where you go to a sporting goods store and you buy what's over the counter and you're like, I can't believe this. I'm going to use these for autographs because they're not comfortable.
Terrible. Well, again, we try on everything ourselves. We test everything ourselves. We get in the gym, test them on fighters before we come out with the product. You got to be in the gyms with the fighters, with the coaches, living the life with them in order to really come out with a product that makes sense, that fits right, that works well, and makes sense for the sport.
No, amazing. Let me ask you this: so, who was your favorite fighter growing up?
Ray Leonard.
And it's amazing. Now you get, what is it? There's an old saying, work so hard that your heroes become your associates, or however that saying goes.
It was a little surreal. getting together with him for the first time. But I knew him from before we even started with his equipment line and all that. So I knew him back from when Nevada Partners, Richard Steele had Nevada Partners, Sugar Ray Leonard Gym there in Las Vegas. So I think that's probably the first time we met.
How does he look the same in 2024 as he looked in 1972?
It's incredible. I mean, and he's still got the moves. You know, he's still got his speed. He has lost his hand speed, which should be gone by now. But yeah, he's in phenomenal shape and continues to work hard, and maintain his physique, his boxing physique.
Didn't you guys have a partnership with Muhammad Ali at some point? I remember seeing Muhammad Ali gloves on your page.
We did collaborate with the Ali brand for several years. But it got to the point where it too got saturated. Everybody else jumped on board. A bunch of other companies started licensing the name, and it just got to it was too watered down. So we were like, well, let's move on to other people that aren't, that everybody doesn't have. It was just too commonplace.
Yeah, but you were the first, so that was before they saw you be successful and they copied. There's a lot of someone will come out with the glove, and before you know it, 5 companies are coming out with the exact same glove, the same patterns, the same colors, the same everything.
Yep.
Does that frustrate you sometimes?
Not really. It's just.
Or you take it as a compliment, like they like my work.
It's just part of the game. It's just the way the industry works. It's a copycat industry. You just kind of take it with a grain of salt. It's not a compliment or anything negative. It's just the way the industry goes. And the Ali brand actually approached us because they had a bunch of, forever they were in sporting goods stores and had all this cheap equipment. They really wanted something higher end, and that's how that kind of started. They wanted to get into the real boxing world, not just the wannabes and the pretenders.
No, that's amazing. So right now, what fight are you looking forward to the most coming up?
Well, I was going to ask you that. I was really looking forward to the Better BF Bivol fight before it got canceled. I'd love to see Canelo fight David Benavidez. I don't know how you feel about that. A lot of people say Canelo's ducking him. I don't know if it's that or if he's just waiting for the money to be right. But I think that's probably the biggest fight on the horizon right now.
I believe Canelo will get the money he wants. I asked David, if he gets $200 million, would you want 100? He goes, I'll do it for $1 million. I'll do it for 5. So David's not looking to outprice himself. And Canelo probably will get $200 million. And that will be a major fight. June 29th, Bam Rodriguez, who's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters, he's fighting Gallo Estrada, who wasn't a pound-for-pound list. Gallo's never been stopped. Tank and Loma are talking about fighting in November. I'm excited for that one.
That'd be a good fight.
Virgil Ortiz, 21-0, 21 knockouts. He's going to fight soon, too. He's one of the hardest working guys.
Yep.
There's no secret in boxing. The guys that work the hardest are the most successful.
Yep.
The Mayweathers, the Pacquiaos, the Canelos, the Tanks, the Virgil Ortiz, they come in early, they stay late, and they go above and beyond. And this sport is so hard. It's the hardest sport on the planet because there's no season. You have to watch your diet. There's mental pressure. There's physical pressure. There's the physical pain. Everybody wants to be the hero, but what is it? Everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die.
Yeah, it is a tough sport, and it's tough to have a lengthy career in this unless you have the right people behind you, unless you're in the gym all the time like Mayweather. I mean, I think that was the key to his success, is that he was always in shape. Not always in boxing shape, but he was always in shape. He never let himself get too far out of his weight class, and I think that's key to your physical health and longevity.
I've talked to him about that, and I'll tell you what's interesting. He never smokes, but everybody around him could smoke. He never drink. He'll go to a nightclub. He won't drink, but everybody around him will drink. Then he's going to run home from the nightclub to his house.
Yeah.
At 3 a.m. Self-discipline. A lot of fighters win one big fight, and they can never repeat it because they celebrate so much. Chino Maidana fought Mayweather in a very good fight, which is great. When he came back for the rematch, he weighed about 200 pounds. He told me, Elie, do me a favor, shoot me from the neck up, because he was so overweight. But I understand that he probably made $7 million or $6 million in Argentina times 300. So he made it. But when you look at Canelo, it doesn't matter how much money he made. He acts for Mayweather. They act like they never won a fight. They never won a title. They never made $1. Pacquiao's the same way. So it doesn't matter. You could give them that money. Other fighters give them $1 or $2 million, which is incredible money. But they're leaving tens of millions on the table by the way they celebrate the one win. Yeah. And they can't win a rematch. They can't. And we see it very often. And many times it's fighters that just go wild with the first paycheck, and that's it for their career. Yeah. They don't repeat it. But Mayweather, you're right. His discipline. In fact, one time I asked him, Floyd, what's the secret of your success? Is it your God-given ability? Is it? He said, no, it's having a good team.
Mm-hmm.
So when his team does their job, he doesn't have to worry about anything. But when you have to micromanage everybody around you and watch out for people trying to make deals behind your back. Okay, Doug, you want to sponsor a fighter, and you call his manager and you say, okay, here's 10 grand, put a logo on the belt. I'm just making it up, maybe more. And then the manager calls the fighter, good news, title will sponsor you for $1,000. Happens a lot. You know what I mean? And the fighter doesn't know. But I'm saying,
yeah, I managed fighters for a while, and you're always trying to get lowballed and under the table and all that. It's a lot to deal with.
yeah, and many times the managers will go with the promotion because they have many fighters, and it sucks for the fighter.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the stuff that when people complain about boxing, like the negativity of it, that it's when I switched from NBA to boxing and I went to major sponsors to get into boxing, same guys I did with the NBA, mainstream. They said, Elie, it's so corrupt in boxing. Yes and no. It's not really as bad as it seems.
Yeah.
But the image is so bad. And now I'm happy now it's cleaning up and it's not, people are becoming, but you don't really see Ray Leonard always has commercial with Skechers, and I've seen him do like 7-Up. Most fighters don't have mainstream sponsors, which they should.
Yeah. Well,
think about it. Like,
I think it requires a certain personality, and again, you got to be willing to put yourself out there. And some fighters are just not comfortable. They're comfortable in the ring fighting in front of millions, but when it comes to being yourself and letting the public see you a little bit, a little tougher for some guys.
Yeah, that's true. Personas this, and many times they're very, very socially awkward, Doug, because they grew up just around their coach with no friends, no social life, dropped out of school in 4th grade or 6th grade, and now at age 25, 29, they have to interact with people, and they have no experience socially at all.
Yeah.
When you play another sport, basketball or baseball, you have teammates. You have a lot of positions. You're dealing with different coaches.
Yeah.
But think about a coach, father, and son team where it was just them from age 0 until 22.
Yeah.
So that adds to it too, because they don't know.
It definitely does. You have teammates to share the load with in other sports. A little different.
But boxing is very lonely.
Yeah.
But you still need a coach. You still need a team, and then, it's like I said, every day is different and new, and I learn new things every day. Every day, I think I know something, and then I learn something new.
It's definitely true about boxing. There's always something else that next level to rise to. Yeah.
Or now influencer boxing. In the beginning, I was very, very supportive of it because I thought they're bringing in lots of new fans. Then I'm worried now that someone's going to get hurt badly because many of them can't fight and they're not dedicated. I'm in the gym with them, but they're drinking and smoking. I don't want to see that. I wish I didn't know that. If you're dedicated and you're really into it, like some of them are, like I'm sure Jake Paul is very dedicated.
From what I hear,
But from other fighters that fight, and I tell them, you guys, I'll cut back. No, you're not supposed to drink.
Well, it's only going to take one accident to happen, then this will shift direction. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, but other than that, the first few months of this year were very slow, but then we picked up. We had the Canelo fight, we had Benavidez fight, Virgil Ortiz fought, and now Tank fought. And it looks like everyone's going to fight again in September, November, December. So this is going to be a very, very good year.
I hope so. So as we're wrapping this up, let me just ask you, what top 3 fights are you looking forward to most for reporting on and covering?
Tank and Loma.
Yep.
I'm going through the divisions. Benavidez and Canelo.
Yeah.
Bivol and Bitterbayev.
Yeah, I agree.
Those three, I think Bivol, beats Bitterbayev. Tank, I think, has the big advantage over Loma, but it's a great fight. Loma has the experience, but Tank has the power. And Benavidez and Canelo, that's fireworks. You have to watch.
Those are all close, tough fights for both guys. I don't think any one of those you'd go, oh, that guy's going to win, no doubt. Those are all going to be knockdown dragouts.
And that's why we love it. I hate watching fights that I know what's going to happen when it's a mixed match. It's not like why are you putting a guy in that's 100-0 with 100 knockouts against a kid that's 3-30?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't. There's nothing to celebrate there. If you in the amateurs, you have walk-ons. That's a walk-on in the pros. Just give him the belt. Like if someone's 30-1 underdog at a championship level, he shouldn't. It's not. Rocky's a movie.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, Elie, I've enjoyed our conversation. Again, thank you for all your positive contribution to the sport and your continued insights for the fans out there. If you would, just do us the honor of closing this podcast with your signature sign-off, and thank you.
So there you have it, guys, with Doug from Title Boxing. Some of the best boxing gloves, pound for pound. I'm Elie Seckbach reporting, and you can follow me on Twitter at Seckbach. You can follow me on Instagram at Elie Seckbach. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. We'll do it again soon.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, Elie.
Thank you for watching this episode of Title Unboxed. If you're anything like me, you can never get too much boxing. So if you'd like to watch more episodes, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on our Title Boxing YouTube page.